So, at the end of the 2018 crossover Elseworlds, a big shiny graphic appeared announcing that coming in fall 2019, the next big CWDC crossover event would be Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I'm pretty sure that at that moment, most DC fans lost their minds. If you want something kind of on the scale of Marvel's Avengers Endgame, then for DC that would have likely been Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I knew of Crisis. I mean, back in like 2017, I actually one of the ones I collect one of the comics I collected that for that year was Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I knew the story. It's not one of my favourite comics, but I admit it was pretty grand, and for the time period in which it came out, it probably was pretty big. So there was a lot of kind of worry. Like, would this live up to it? Would this be as big as everyone hoped it would be? In some sense, yeah, it was. It's huge. Probably one of the biggest things that the CW Arrowverse has ever done. On others, well, on others it was kind of okay, but you know what, it did pretty well. So, what? So what's the basic story? The Anti Monitor has been released and is planning to destroy pretty much the Matter universe, in which the majority of the Arrowverse takes place, and replace it with an antimatter universe. So the Monitor, played once again by LaMonica Garrett, and his servant Harbinger, a Lila Michaels, played once again by Audrey Marie Anderson, travel across the multiverse in order to recruit as many heroes as they can to fight against the Anti-Monitor's forces and ultimately save reality, or save the multiverse. Among these heroes are, of course, the ones that we all come to know and love. Stephen Amell's Oliver Queen, Grant Gustin's Barry Allen, Brandon Routh and Katie Lotz's Legends, uh, Melissa Benoist's Supergirl, and a whole lot more besides as they fight in order to defeat the Anti-Monitor's forces, defeat the forces of darkness, and ultimately save the multiverse. Now, one of the big things that they announced was that a load of DC properties were gonna all tie together in this one universe, in this one big crossover event. Now, some of them they did back up with proof, and some of them did come fairly easy to believe. For example, it was announced pretty officially that Burt Ward would have a small role in the crossover events, as would actors like Tom Welling and Erica Durance, who appeared in Smallville, Kevin Conroy, who has famously voiced Batman on and off in various cartoons and video games. Black Lightning would join the Arrowverse, and many more besides. And even the big announcement that Brandon Routh would not only be playing Atom in this big crossover event, but would also reprise his role as Superman from 2006, it was pretty big news. But then, as time went on and more kind of announcements were made about the crossover, it became harder and harder to believe them, or they became so frequent announcements that I eventually began to think, yeah, they aren't going to appear for very long. This is maybe going to be just like a 5 second interval and that's it, which was true for a lot of them. I mean, for example, Burt Ward is only in there for about 5 seconds. There's also a brief look at Michael Keaton's Batman era, the Titans, and uh, and several more besides. But then again, it is kind of cool that even if they don't reprise their roles for very long, it is they do actually make appearances in it. I mean, Tom Welling and Erica Durance's part, I actually think is rather cool. Essentially, the part they appear in, I believe it's like part in part two, where where our heroes have to find one of the paragons. In that there are several paragons, people who embody certain traits, and they know that one of them has to be, or they presume to be, a Superman, the paragon of truth. So Candice Patton, Tyler Hoechlin, and Elizabeth Tulloch go off to try and search for this one and come across Tom Welling. Tom Welling, who famously played Superman in Smallville, kind of working on his farm, kind of chopping up wood, but before they can try and retrieve him, they are suddenly switched out by Jon Cryer's Lex Luthor, who has plans to essentially destroy most of the Superman across the multiverse. But they managed to make it a bit fun by that he holds out a piece of kryptonite like, obey me, or bow to me, and then Tom Welling just picks it up, tosses it in the air, and then tosses it away. It's like, what? Like, I gave up. Kryptonite doesn't affect me anymore because I gave up my powers. Like, you took all the fun out of it. I mean, yeah, Tom Welling's only in there for about 5 minutes, but they made his part so much fun. I mean, it's great to see Erica Durance back. Tom Welling's great, and just to see his chemistry with Jon Cryer's Lex Luthor is just brilliant. It would have been nice to see Michael Rosenbaum back as well as Lex, but he apparently said he wasn't keen on it, so, you know what, fair enough. But eventually they do manage to locate the 7 Paragons, those being Sarah Lance as the Paragon of Destiny, Kate Kane's Courage, Kara Danvers is Hope, John Jones is Honor, Barry Allen is Love, a newcomer named Ryan Choi is the Paragon of Humanity, and while they do manage to locate the Paragon of Truth, which at first is Brandon Routh's Superman, Lex Luthor then seemingly manages to switch out him as the Paragon of Truth. And while that's mainly for the last 2 parts, which occurred this year, it is pretty kind of funny just seeing Melissa Benoist and Jon Cryer just, we have to do good, but we hate each other, and just them, obviously, like, she has him on a short leash, and he wants to kind of show he's more powerful than her, and it's just great fun. Now, of course, one of the other big things about this crossover was that since Arrow's section of it came in one of Arrow's last episodes, I felt it fair to assume, I think we all did, that Oliver Queen was going to die in this one. That this was going to be Stephen Amell's last go as Green Arrow, and it was fair to assume he was going to die. And to be fair, he does, but then again, not quite in the way I thought. Because I thought, when I was mapping it out in my head, that, oh, okay, he's going to become one of the last ones standing, and then ultimately going to sacrifice himself in order to save humanity and everything. And they do that, but then also not quite the way you think. I mean, of course, spoilers. I mean, if you're this far in, you're not that worried about spoilers. But then he simply dies at the end of part 1, and I'm thinking, oh, that I did not expect. But then they kind of do a thing where some of the other heroes try to revive him, only to discover that he has seemingly been recruited by a man named Jim Corrigan in order to become the next Spectre. The Spectre being a pretty famous kind of figure in DC Comics who seemingly has enormous power from beyond the grave. And with the appearance of Jim Corrigan, played this time by Stephen Lobo, I would have loved it if Emmett J. Scanlan had come back as Jim Corrigan, seeing as he played the role in Constantine series, and they do have Matt Ryan's Constantine comment on it, like, I am Jim Corrigan. Not the one I know, but yeah, I can... If they would strap for time and they couldn't get a hold of him, then yeah, I think Stephen Lobo does a good job. And in the end, Oliver Queen as Spectre, he does end up having a pretty crucial role, and he does... Well, he doesn't at first have the kind of big sacrifice I thought he would. He later on does, towards the end of... I believe it's the end of part 4. But then, of course, you got the big ultimate fight in part 5... where all the remaining heroes have to go up against the Anti-Monitor, and it is just big, dumb superhero fun, which I think after 4 incredibly dark episodes, the big dark fun was what we needed. Also, it's nice that, like the comic it's based upon, it does kind of lace most of the worlds into one. I mean, one of the things that Barry and Kara have to kind of get a grip on or get hold of when ultimately the multiverse is saved is that now their universes have now seemingly been combined, as Kara now has to deal with Weather Witch in National City before Barry races over and stops her. And it is kind of nice to see that the heroes now have something to kind of get used to with time, as they now have that they now can't just pop. It's not quite as complicated as hopping over universes anymore, but then it's also a bit weird in that they don't have to do that anymore. So it's pretty fun. And the final kind of big moment of the episode is the reveal of the Hall of Justice, in that a group of heroes standing together to mourn over the death of Green Arrow, and then Black Lightning just turns them like, "Why are you doing it to a condemned warehouse?" "Oh, this isn't a condemned warehouse. This is a secret Starlands facility that nobody uses and nobody knows about." And then Barry reveals that he's set up the Justice League table. Now, this big warehouse last appeared in the... oh god, I can't remember how long ago it was. Hold on. Crisis. I believe it appeared back in 2016. The big 2016 crossover Invasion, and where it did look a lot more than like the Hall of Justice, I think if they'd left it there, that probably would have been good enough for us. But this time they actually do turn it into sort of a Hall of Justice, with even the big table. And I do like that this version of the Justice League that they're seemingly creating isn't a traditional one. I mean, yes, you got the big players like Superman and Flash are always in there, but then it's also made up of members who aren't necessarily the most traditional. I mean, the final big table for all of them is Martian Manhunter, Batwoman, White Canary, Supergirl, Superman, Flash, and Black Lightning. I mean, that's a non-traditional Justice League, given that Batman isn't there and neither is Wonder Woman, but you know what? For me, it works. This, to me, Crisis on Infinite Earths felt a lot like Avengers Endgame or Lord of the Rings, in that it did possibly go on for a little longer than it needed to, but then after 8 years of build-up, it's probably earned it. And you know what? I know that some people are going to complain that it's a bit too long, but for me, I felt this was huge. This was a big event, and it legitimately felt genuinely epic. It changed things about the Arrowverse, it incorporated new elements of it, and it was just a damn fun time. Plus it incorporated other elements that I didn't expect, like they even had a reference later on in part 5 of 2011's Green Lantern, which I thought was nice, and even an appearance by Ezra Miller Flash. That was unexpected, and you know what? It all fit together rather nicely. I did have to look at the reference at the end with Gleek, but you know what? Even that paid off. So, yeah. Crisis on Infinite Earths. Similar to Avengers Endgame, this was the big one for the CW's Arrowverse. You know what? I feel it did well. It'll be sad to see Stephen Amell go as Green Arrow, but you know what? The rest of them can carry on. Crisis on Infinite Earths. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out.